One thing I want to talk about right now, and this is something I heard you talk about it last week on your podcast, and I've heard like some other people talk about it within the last few days. So was it last weekend? No, it was after the Royal Rumble. On the WWE Network, they premiered the first episode of a new series called WWE Icons. We've seen the trailer. What was the trailer? Was that their Survivor Series? I think it was. I think it was end of 2020. So I've seen multiple people call it this. It's WWE's answer to Dark Side of the Ring, more or less, as far as it's a docu-series that takes, various wrestlers from WWE's past and just kind of really focuses on their life and career in WWE and outside the ring, and based on the selection of people. So I'm just going off the top of my head. It was Yokozuna, Beth Phoenix, RVD, British Bulldog, Lex Luger. That's right. Yeah. And then I think I'm missing one more. I think it was 6 total, but nonetheless, it's documenting them, and obviously kind of the majority of them, there are some dramatic aspects about what happened to them later on in life outside the ring. So I was kind of curious about the presentation of this. So anyway, nonetheless, I've heard multiple people say, oh, it's their answer to Dark Side of the Ring. And I'm like, good, finally. It's like, I love Dark Side of the Ring. Have you seen all the episodes of Dark Side of the Ring?
Yeah.
What'd you think of Dark Side of the Ring as a show overall?
The first season was really good, and it got really popular, of course. It got really well received. I thought the second season was they're more going for the CD and the. I mean, I know it's called Dark Side, but they seemed like I don't know. Some of the stuff might have been a little. Just I don't think they really wanted the facts as much as they wanted just more of the, just to give them something like really dirty. And I don't know, to me, it's up, but they're interesting. I mean, I like the Owen Hart one was really well done though.
Yeah. And the Benoit one was
that was a tough one to watch.
That was very tough. I mean, it was a 2-parter, and just just
my all-time favorites. It was revisiting that, and just it was pretty hard for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so for this show, so for WWE Icons, I'm kind of glad that they're doing this because they're WWE. They're the biggest company in the world. They have all the resources, all the money we talked about. Like,
they don't need to use messed up YouTube footage or some third generation dub version.
Exactly, it's like
clean.
They have the library. They have access to all the talent and the camera crew to put together these really nice package docuseries episodes, and I'm glad they're doing this. I mean, I know they do a great job with like the 24 and a lot of the other docuseries that they do on the WWE Network, but it's like, let's focus on the people in the past who helped get the company to where it is today, sacrifice their bodies and whatnot. So I was like really excited that they're doing this, really kind of telling the story of these legends. And granted, it is WWE producing this own stuff, so they control the narrative more or less and kind of focus on certain things, and maybe not you get the full story, but nonetheless, I think they're, at least for this first episode of Yokozuna, I think they did a really good job just kind of capturing the whole life of Yokozuna and just what he was about. So I know you touched on this last week on your podcast, but just kind of your initial just thoughts on this very first episode of WWE Icons, Yokozuna.
I mean, I was gripped from the beginning. Like I thought I was gonna watch like 20 minutes of it because it's late. It was after Rumble, right? And I threw it on. Now I watched a little bit of it, but I just got glued, and I finished the whole thing that night.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed. All these documentaries. I always enjoy seeing the family.
Yeah.
That was they were all great. To me, I don't think they really left much out. They told a really good story, and it's a sad story at the end, but it's more of a celebration of life for Yoko, who was this giant of a man with also a giant heart, and taking care of his family when he was making the money and he was helping out, always very generous. Which that's basically the Tongan culture. They really it's all about taking care of their family, and I saw that personally with my wife's grandparents' caregiver, Lofi. I mean, she really, I thought I knew about the Tongan culture by watching wrestling, but she let me know then their cultures, and they told everything is pretty amazing culture. And but yeah, I love it. I was a big Yoko guy, because I remember him. I remember seeing him as Kokino Max as AWA because I was watching everything that had a ring in it, right, on ESPN, AWA, the Dying Days. I was watching that, and I remember seeing Kokina, and he was like moving around the ring so fast, and such a guy's big size. I love the footage of him as a head shrinker. Like that was so awesome.
Yeah.
I remember reading about that, but I've never seen it. So that was awesome. And I always like the big guys that can go. When he debuted, I was like, hey, that's Kokina Maximus. He's not Japanese,
So I'm glad you said that. So, like I said,
Yokozuna doesn't have to mean Japanese. I found out later it was grand champion of sumo, but at the time I was like, wait a second, he's Kokina Maximus Samoan.
So no, I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, what I like about this episode, it covers his early years, who he was, how he got into wrestling, his time in WWE, success, life after WWE, and all that stuff. So I really like the whole timeline that they covered. But I'm with you. So okay, when he got into WWE and was taken off in 92. So for me, I was 8 going on 9 years old. So at the time, I was still fairly young and still just learning how to watch it and process it. And very much like your daughter, I wasn't keep track of all the dirt sheet stuff and who was he beforehand? What was the old gimmick? And I didn't, I was still just too young. I was just enjoying what was on TV and what was presented to me and just eat it up as it is. But I will admit, growing up, I was like, he doesn't look Japanese. I was watching, even as a kid, I was like, he looks different. Mr. Fuji, he doesn't look like him. I just remember as a kid, I didn't put 2 and 2 together and realize, he's Samoan and all that stuff and the history there. And when I got much older and I was able to, backtrack and research and look up stuff, I was like, oh, okay. So, but at the time I was just like, this guy is big. He's awesome in the ring. And, I keep in mind, at my age, I was still coming off the 80s and the rock and roll 80s of WWF with Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Andre the Giant. And Yokozuna really represent that next wave, the new generation that they've been calling it before the Attitude Era. And so I've always had a special place in my heart for Yokozuna as far as what he brought to the ring as a character. And it was really the changing of the guard and all that stuff. And one example was obviously WrestleMania 9, which they got into in this. And I didn't know
everything they would do. I wanted to see the reaction of the finish, what people thought.
Yeah.
And that was cool to see. Bret Hart's opinion on it, it was kind of stupid. Yeah.
See, at the time, I was like, all right, yes, Hulk Hogan's back.
That's so awesome.
So as a kid, I loved it. I was like, man, he beat Bret Hart. I like Bret Hart. And no, how dare he do that? Oh, Hulk Hogan's making the save. Wow, Yokozuna is issuing a challenge right there. All right. Hogan comes in and he beat him. It's like, whoa, yeah, Hulkamania. Now, as my older self, now, okay, you kind of see more behind the curtain of what went on. It's like, yeah, that kind of sucks for Yokozuna. He was a champ for 30 seconds or a minute, they said, before Hogan took it back. And obviously now at my older age, I've learned obviously about Hogan, the backstage politics. And in this documentary, they bring it up about Bruce Pritchard said they want to put the belt on Hogan because this was supposedly his last hurrah with the company, obviously before he went to WCW. But they have a big European tour, so they want him as a goodbye tour, at least be champion. And then looks like him and Yokozuna battled out on all the various house shows over there. So it makes sense from a business standpoint. And then they showed the old footage. The fans overseas were like, yeah, Hulk Hogan's coming and he's going to beat up Yokozuna. So, from a creative standpoint at the time, I guess it made sense. But, obviously from a bigger picture standpoint, it's it kind of sucks for Yokozuna, that he lost the title in that short period of time. But
it's really cool hearing your memories of that, because my memory of that was confusion. Not excitement. I remember, because nothing's ever like that happened in wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? Titles change and you have a new champion. And so when I was a kid, I watched WWF pay-per-views on Scramble Vision, right?
Yes. The black box.
All the younger viewers now are like, what the hell is he
I know.
talking?
They know the struggle of a black box.
The black box did not come into play to 1994 from the LaRocca household. But
I was going to say, can we talk about this? Enough years have passed that we're...
Oh, yeah. Shoot. They're on to us already. But
Way before Napster and all that stuff, like we had to struggle with like you got to know someone to meet up in an alleyway to get a little black box to get you access to everything on cable TV.
see, WWF pay-per-views are more expensive than WCW, so I would get my parents or save enough money to be able to pay some of it or all of the WCW pay-per-views. It was like $20, 1995. Like it was easy to kind of twist my parents' arm right for those, and plus. I was a WCW guy. I mean, Luger, Sting, Flair. Like, I had to watch that stuff, right? So, like, it just continued on for me when it came to WCW. And so I remember being shocked when he won when Yokozuna won the Rumble, 93 at Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sitting there watching Scramble Vision. You can see a little bit. You hear, it's like a radio, just listen to the radio guy,
Yeah.
And you got Jim Ross on the call, so he's such a great, he can describe the action for you perfectly. And he wins. I'm like, right, lost to Yoko? Because I was so geared to good guys always beat the bad guys in WWF. Right? Champions always kind of conquer the villains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Hogan happened. That happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I didn't know how to take it. I remember going shooting hoops after listening to Scramble Vision and watching Scramble Vision. Shooting hoops. My buddies came in the neighborhood. We started shooting hoops, and they're not wrestling fans. I'm trying to describe what happened. And they did not give a crap, right? That's how down wrestling was 93. But I just remember still being like, well, how is that legal? How can he really win it? I had all these questions. That was what it's for, to make you tune on that. What? I guess that was that Monday that year? Yeah, because Monday Raw was, Monday I tuned in to see what was going on.
It was amazing because I remember it just, for me, it was always stuck in my head, Brett, like, waving the Hulk like go get him, go, and I was like,
real life he's like, I gotta do this, I
gotta. I know it's it was great, Brett talk about it now, and I was really surprised they got Hogan on this episode to give his perspective. He gave a very PC safe description of like, oh yeah, I asked Vince what was gonna happen, and I was like, oh, well, what happened if I did this? And so he just very like nonchalant. It's like, oh yeah, what if I just came in and won the titles? Like did really more happen?
Do you think in that case, are they painting Hogan as the little bit of a villain there than Vince?
Like he's taking the blame?
Well, because I would think Vince would, because Hogan's back, and that's kind of like, business is down, right? Business is down, and
Because a lot of them went to WCW at that point, right? A lot of the
business is down in WCW. I mean, it's just business down in 92, 93, just wrestling business. Kind of what we feel now, like when it comes to popularity, it's kind of just, down.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like house shows are struggling for both companies. So now you have Hogan back, and Hogan's a proven draw for you. So I think Vince wanted also to get the belt to Hogan to draw those.
Okay.
Right? So, but I think for this narrative, there's that, and I'm sure Hogan did kind of chime in, so I think it's a little bit of both Vince and Hogan. And so I think, but whatever, they're just trying to, they're just telling their story. But I really wanted to hear Bret Hart's opinion because he's a straight shooter, right? He don't care.
Yeah.
And so I really liked. He's like, yeah, it's kind of stupid. It was stupid. I was like, yes, Bret, it was stupid. Now looking back at it, I didn't know that match was shorter because Yoko blew up, and like that match is gonna go long. It's like the shortest, one of the shortest main events. It must be the shortest main event in WrestleMania history. 9 minutes was the match.
Wow, God, it was only that long.
Yeah, but he got the belt back in June, so
yeah. And so we saw like after the tour, he won it back at that King of the Ring that year. So and then he had like that really long, was 280 or 290 day title reign. So
which was very unique back then because there's always the babyface champion on top. Like I said, knocking down the heel challengers, and so Yoko had it for like 9 months.
Yeah,
and I remember thinking like, well, I was pissed that Luger didn't win it, but that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that when that. There, but like, I just loved Yoko, like beyond the bonsai drop. Like I would just love it when he hit that belly to belly suplex, and then the leg drop. Like it was a sight to see. I'm glad I got to see him in person a few times, and I also saw him in person on a show actually.
So I was going to ask you about that. So I remember you were talking about on your podcast last week. So you actually got to like, you were cool. You kept cool around him. You didn't mark out, right? It
was 97. It's when I was volunteering at APW. That's when I got into the wrestling, and And we used to do the tape dubbing for the customers and get a little money for doing tapes for APW. And, you know, they were doing this show in Watsonville, and there was this lucha show with all these guys, and they use APW's ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to tag along to, you know, I wanted to go see the show, and of course I had to help put the ring up as part of my paying my dues or whatever. Yep. And I remember, like, after the ring was up, we got there really early, set it up, we're hanging out in the ring truck, and walked by was Yoko and his entourage of, you know, family. And he's like, "What's up, guys?" And we're just like, "Hey." And then I remember Michael Modest told us that he was very proud of us, me and my buddy Gabe, that you know, we didn't mark out, and, you know, that was like a big deal to them, because you know we were just at the time just fans who got to go behind. We were the first ever volunteers of APW, and then they started, you know, getting more people to volunteer, but we were the first to let behind that curtain back then, because it was very rare that they would let people from the outside start just helping out behind the scenes. And
yeah, so that time period, that was like right after he was released from WWE. So, but he still had, you know, he's still fresh coming off the release and going to the independent scene. So, you know, his name at that time in 97 was like, oh my God, that's Yokozuna. That's the guy, you know, from WrestleManias and, you know, all the stuff he did in WWE. So I'm sure, you know, for you, like, I know inside,
inside I was like, oh man, that's Yokozuna. But we just said, how's it going? Like, we ended, like I said, I remember Michael Moss was like, you know, we're just proud of you. Just proud of you guys for not marking out. And, you know, make them look bad. Because if we did that, they're like, well, if these guys are marking out like this, like these other guys, the wrestlers that are they might be, you know, like that too. Which, you know, I don't know. It was just, I learned that lesson early, how to act around, you know, when you're in the back, I guess. I don't know. I can't explain it now, but like, it's just, that's the way we were kind of talking, you know?
No, I get that. No, God, what was it, a couple years ago at an APW show? I don't know if I should say this, like, who cares? Caesar Black, you know, brought Jimbo and I backstage just to talk. But I was like kind of like my first time ever in like the wrestler's locker room. And so I didn't know. Like, here I am, you know, in my 30s. Like, I was still like Danny, like, okay, I've been to like big concerts, met all the biggest rock stars, you know, just, you know, kind of apply that same mentality. Like, just be cool. Just go in the locker room, just chill out. Don't be cool. Like, be cool. But I was like, you know, there's a lot of people I recognize, I'm a fan of, but, you know, just chill. It was cool. And, you know, hung out there for a bit, and then we went back outside. But nonetheless, yeah, what I can relate to you as far as inside, you're like, oh my God, like, this is so cool. But it's like, yeah, just keep chill, man. We're all humans. We're all people, man. Just be cool. And, you know, just, it makes it easier for everyone just to, you know, act chill. And that way no one has to worry about putting like a wall up and be like, you know, all some mark out fans, you know, approaching me right now. But anyway, it was cool. So I totally get what you're saying, and just that mentality of how to treat and act around people and stuff like that. So, but also with this documentary, I really enjoyed. It was obviously, yeah, just like his whole family history and how big that wrestling family history is. And it was really interesting that he was, I didn't know this. Like, there's a lot of things I learned. I didn't know he was going to be brought on as part of the Head Shrinkers, but then he got the leg injury, and then Rikishi ultimately came in and, you know, took that spot. And then he was able to come in as, quote, the third member of Alpha's faction that he was making, the new generation of, you know, Samoan wrestlers. But then got repackaged really quick with Sergeant Slaughter's recommendation of like the sumo wrestler gimmick. And I love that, because like I remember as a kid, like, just the big red pants. Like, the outfit is very simple, but it stood out to me. Obviously, you know, the hair and, you know, the style, the man bun that it was. And then, you know, he had the pants, and it just always stood out. I mean, as you said, the simple move sets of, you know, the belly to belly, you know, suplex, but then also, you know, the bonsai drop that he did. I was like, all that stuff was intimidating. Like, everyone who would land on the chest and like the pain that they're in, I'm like, oh my God. Like, as a kid, I'm like, that looks so painful. And he really stood out as like a really badass big man that I really appreciated, and I really tune in. And, you know, just the footage of the kids in the crowd, like all their mouths dropped, seeing his presence. I was like, that's what makes wrestling so cool, where, you can have these larger than life personalities that just connect with the people and just that entertainment value. And that's something I try to explain to people who are not wrestling fans, like, why do you like this stuff? And it's like, that's part of why. It's just like, I just love that. And so they really captured that presence he had at the time. So that was just really cool. But then the other thing, like I said, the family, that was really cool. Just seeing everyone, say really great things about him and how generous he was. And it was cool seeing like Tonga Kid make an appearance as well. And so, and then like, and the thing is, like, as you said, like for you, a lot of those guys have connections also with APW. So I was like, it's really cool. Like I'm watching this and I was thinking of you. And it's like your connections with all the extended family there. With Tonga Kid and obviously his son, Jacob Fatu, and what he's been doing with APW for years. And even, God, what was it last year? Or no, it was 2019. Remember the Samoan Dynasty invasion angle?
Yeah.
So that was like really cool seeing that, in person here. So it's just really cool, just the whole family tree of his family and how he really was a trailblazer for this next generation to come out. So like I said, I really enjoyed this. Obviously, it was just really sad seeing life after WWE, his weight issues and stuff. But I always kind of wondered, man, what if he was able to get the weight under control and was able to come back during that Attitude Era? Like what he would have done. Would he still been Yokozuna? Would he been repackaged as something else? Like that's like my biggest what if.
I'm guessing he would have, because remember when he got taken out by Vader and everything, and he came back for a match, right, with Vader or a feud with Vader, and he was speaking English, and they're like, this is the first time he spoke English, but like he did a couple promos in English before, though most of it was with Mr. Fuji or of course Jim Cornette doing the promos for him, which was probably the smart move to get Cornette in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's a sensational talent. The NOI family are all talented. Samoans are just such talented pro wrestlers. When you have a bad Samoan wrestler, then it's like that's a shocking thing. Like they're all really good. I think 99% are all really good. I have seen one that wasn't that great, but for the most part, they're all really talented. And seeing Sam Fatu, Tonga Kid on there is great. If I remember correctly, he was there that when Yoko wrestled that Watsonville show.
Nice.
Tag with Sam Fatu and stuff. So, good show.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to the next one. I mean, the Beth Phoenix one, not really that looking forward to, but I'll watch it. The Dave Boy Smith one's going to be kind of tough because I'm sure going to talk to Harry Smith and he's going to talk about his dad, and that's going to be probably tough because he lost his dad so early.
In Georgia too, yeah.
So, Georgia, and then Luger is going to be tough for me, so I might have to then Elias gets a couple candles out, and just tissue paper.
Well, I'm curious,
he's
like
not
how
passed away, but
Well, I'm curious how much of like the Elizabeth stuff they're gonna get into as well, like how they're gonna tell that story. And
I'm kind of hoping it ends positive with his faith. Like at least I hope that's what's kind of the end of it.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to all of it, and maybe we can kind of review all of them as they come out. I don't know when the next one drops. I thought it was gonna be every weekend, but I guess maybe they'll save it for after like every big pay-per-view, so they'll kind of spread it out a little bit longer throughout the year. So it's interesting because I seen I follow Georgia Smith on Instagram, and she's been posting a lot of stuff like behind the scenes stuff that they were filming. God, was it a month or two ago? With her mom flew down to Tampa, and so that way her and Harry and her mom, all three of them, were in the room, and that's the stuff you saw in the trailer. So no, it's cool. I'm looking forward to all of it, and just these are people from my early years getting into wrestling, and just especially the RVD one too. That's going to be interesting. Like how
Just
they
him banging chicks? Is that what we're gonna get?
I mean, like what? Just
is that what he's doing on Instagram or Twitter, at least for like the last 2 years?
Yeah, it's him and Katie Ford, what they've been doing, and
with the other chicks.
Yes, exactly. But it's like, but
God bless them, right?
I mean, I guess they're gonna tell. I guess like, okay, we've heard the ECW story so much, so it's like how they're gonna tell that different, maybe from his perspective. What was it like being part of that promotion? But
how many weed fines did he?
Yeah,
have to
him and Sabu, like,
why did he have to like pay out the WWE for?
Yeah, exactly.
Or just pay it a year in advance. Like, here you go. Like, how many tests are you give me a year? Here's my here's my weed fine for the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. But no, all that stuff I'm looking forward to it. And then yeah, the Yokozuna stuff. Like if you haven't watched it, please watch it. It's I think it's really important. Just he was one of the big names, really part of that new generation. And during that transitional period where WWE had to find new stars and make new talent and how to keep the company going, you got to kind of go down a little bit to kind of build back up right for the Attitude Era explosion. So I loved it, everything about it.